Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Prabhupada ki. Go, Premanandi. I didn't lower it, it just fell by itself. So today we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Actually, this was the verse was spoken yesterday. You recall when she gave class, her verse never had a purport. So she read this verse in the second position. So I
mistake, Prabhu.
How does it go?
Put that thing in.
Yes.
How's it go? Thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So there's 4 topics to discuss today. One is the Srimad Bhagavatam about Putana, the last verse of the section. Then we need to talk about Sita's appearance day. And we also have to talk about Janava Mata's appearance day. And there's another venerable soul too. Mother Pandit, okay. So I'll probably be looking for your help along the way. Okay, so we're doing text 44. Ya etat putana moksham.
Ya etat putana moksham.
Ya etat putana moksham.
Ya etat putana moksham.
Krishnasya bakam adbhutam. Krishnasya bakam adbhutam. Shrinuyach Shradaya Martyo. Shrinuyach Shradaya Martyo. Govinde Labate Ratim. Govinde Labate Ratim. Ya etat putana moksham.
Yaetat putana moksham.
Krishnasya bakam adbhutam. Shrinuyat shradaya martyo. Govinde labate ratim. Ya etat putana moksham. Krishnasya bakam adbhutam. Shrinuyat shradaya martyo. Govinde labate ratim. Ya etat putana moksham. Ya etat putana moksham. Krishnasya bhakam adbhutam. Shrinuyat shradaya martyo. Govinde labate ratim. Yaha. Anyone who. Etat. This. Putana moksham. Salvation of Putana. Krishnasya. Of Krishna. Abhakam. The childhood pastimes. Adbhutam. Wonderful. Shrinuyat. Should hear. Shradaya. With faith and devotion. Marchaha. Any person within this material world. Govinde. For the Supreme Person, Govinda. Adi Purusha. Labate. Gains. Ratim. Attachment. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Any person who hears with faith and devotion about how Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, killed Putana, and who thus invests his hearing in such childhood pastimes of Krishna, certainly attained attachment for Govinda, the Supreme Original Person. The page, please. Any person who hears with faith and devotion about how Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, killed Putana, and who thus invests his hearing in such childhood pastimes of Krishna, certainly attains attachment for Govinda, the Supreme Original Person. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The incident in which the great witch attempted to kill the child, but was killed herself, is certainly wonderful. Therefore, this verse uses the word adbhutam, meaning specifically wonderful. Krishna has left us many wonderful narrations about him, simply by reading these narrations as they are described in Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One gains salvation from this material world and gradually develops attachment to and devotion for Govinda, Adi Purusha. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 10th canto, 6th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Killing of the Demon Putana. Om Jnana Timarandasya Janan Jana Shalakaya Chakshur Anmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So this is an intriguing story. The Sanskrit is Putana Moksham, So Prabhupada just says Putana was killed, but Putana was liberated. So it's extraordinary that a killer becomes liberated and goes back to the spiritual world. So it's quite an extraordinary story. And Prabhupada in this verse is pointing out that just by listening to this verse with faith and devotion, then what you achieve is labate, govinde labate ratin. That you beget this attachment for Krishna. That's the reward. That's the fruit of listening with faith and devotion. My brother, he's not a Krishna follower. He's from a different faith. And we decided that one day it might be interesting for him to read the Krishna book, the Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he got to this pastime of Putana and heard about this huge, monstrous form of Putana. That was it. That was it. The Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, as a volume for him to read, was no longer relevant. So the Puranas create these incredible dichotomies in the minds of those who don't have faith or devotion. And therefore they don't want to hear it. They can't hear it. If they read it, they can't really hear it. And therefore they don't get this attachment to Krishna. They remain separate from it. And we come across this formula again and again in our listening to Srila Prabhupada and what he says and the Bhagavad Gita. That only by devotional service can you enter into devotional service. And we heard that simple example that the honey and the honey jar, that if you want to know what honey tastes like, you can't just look at it from the external. You've got to open, screw up the cap and taste some of the honey. Then you know what it tastes like. So if you want to know what attachment to Krishna tastes like, you have to cultivate that attachment for Krishna. So when the whole Bhagavatam is narrating these stories, for enable us to hear about Krishna and attain a different experience. And devotees find that. Here, testimony, all the devotees here are experiencing from time to time different intensities of this rati. And therefore it convinces the devotees to keep going. This is a process that works. And we're devotees experiencing that when they do things with faith and devotion, they find their attachment for Krishna developing. So this is the science, probably the science of devotional service. But it remains hidden for those who don't have faith or devotion. The stories are extraordinary. Like yesterday, Chittarati gave her class. She was very cautious about our audience and made it relevant. I'm a bit more bold today. This is an interesting verse also from a cow protection perspective, if I may delve back a little bit. The word Govinda comes up many times, and this is a word go, cows, or Krishna's name is attributing to cow. But particularly I wanted to go back to a very important verse, which is quite unique, very unique in the whole Bhagavatam. I'm doing this research about all the verses in the Bhagavatam that have anything to do with cows, milk, butter, ghee, oxen, calf, anything that's got something to do with cows. So there's about 600 of them, and of which 300 are in the 10th canto, perhaps not surprisingly. But this verse, a previous verse is a chapter in this chapter on verse 20 and 19, and you get a very interesting statement, because what's happened is after the killing of Putana, his mother and mothers, they reached for something to protect their child. The child is in its most vulnerable position. This is why this pastime is so pertinent. Because how can a child protect itself? And yet this child was able to not only kill Putana, but transfer her real self, the soul, to the best place in existence, the spiritual realm, and where she would play a motherly role there. So these gopis, they knew something that the world doesn't know. And Raksham vidadhire samya gopucha brahmanadibihi. We heard the word Goraksha many times. It's in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishi Goraksha Vaniam Vaishya Karma Sabhavajam. This is the activities of the Vaishyas. They're meant to do agriculture, cow protection, or trade as their means of existence, and then that is the core economic fabric of society. Society is meant to be governed around these three primary activities by the Vaishyas, and then there are those who are directing it, and those who are purifying it, and those who are, you could say, providing the hands and legs to manifest it. So the word Goraksha means cows, protection, protecting cows. Now here we're hearing Rakshan vidadhare samyag, that you get all protection from the cows. Interesting. And the next verse also says the same thing. It says Raksham chakrush chasakrita, that this cow dung of the cow executes protection. In other words, it's a reciprocal relation. You protect the cows, and the cows protect us in ways that nobody would really consider. I mean, this is quite fascinating. Go pucha brahmanadibi. Go means the cow again. Pucha means the tail. Brahmana adibi. Brahmana means like to wave around, or to kind of go in a circle. So the tail of a cow, waved in particular ways, gives Raksham vidadhire samyag. It means it gives, it's executed, it's completely, samyak means complete. There's nothing else you need. And it gives, it's executed completely just by waving the tail of a cow. How is that even conceivable? Something so innocuous as a cow's tail has the ability to give all protection. This is what they reached for. They didn't reach for the army. The gopi didn't reach for the police. They reached for a cow's tail. And just around them, wave this cow's tail around the body of Krishna. There's no other verse in the Bhagavatam that says that. Now, does that mean it's not important? No, it means it's been said. The Bhagavatam, it's like, the Bhagavatam deals with truths. It says things, and occasionally you find the same verse, occasionally. I mean, the Bhagavad Gita, there's a Manmana Mavabad Bhakto. That verse comes up twice. But normally the verses are said once. So the Bhagavatam deals with, it says something and moves on to the next beautiful variety of things to be said. So this is the only place where you find that the cow's tail has this universal protective ability. Now, we might think, well, how can I get some of that? Well, we experience it every single day. When we do the chamra to Srila Prabhupada, we're waving the tail of a cow. We're blessing Srila Prabhupada. It's got two symbols. One is it's a blesser, it's clearly protecting, offer protection. We want to offer protection to Srila Prabhupada because he's the thing most important to us. Of course, he's protecting us. We're here to be protected by Srila Prabhupada. But the waving of that chamra, it's not just some regal, it is regal. It is a symbol of royalty. It is a symbol of importance. This is mentioned in the Bhagavatam. There are a number of references about the chamra. And this chamra happens to be from a yak. And a yak is a type of a cow. Sometimes there's a controversy about what is a cow. Is only an Indian cow a cow? And the Western cows are not cows? There is some very mischievous propaganda that sometimes advocates such a thing. Now, there's a whole discussion about what is a cow. What about a buffalo? No, a buffalo is not a cow. But what about a bison? An American bison or a European bison, are they cows? They can certainly interbreed. There are examples of that. But they're wild. You generally wouldn't milk them. You wouldn't be able to use them for an ox cart. So they're wild cows. But are they under the broad spectrum of Govinda, Godvija, Sura, Arta, Hara, Avatar. Are they the cows that Krishna comes from the spiritual world to protect? Interesting thought. There's a Gavaya, which is also described, Prabhu describes it as a bison, but it's an Indian cow, it's wild. There's also a tame version that they use. Anyway, so this tail of a cow, Adibi also means the end. This inconspicuous thing has the ability to give protection. How do we understand that? Well, there are many things that we don't understand that we take for granted. For example, radar. Radar is there. Every country has got radar. We don't understand how radar works, but it's there to give protection to the society. It's always kind of scanning what's coming, who's coming. We don't understand that, but it works. So they understood this science. There's something about this tail of a cow that if you wave it in certain ways, it's giving you protection. And also, they wanted to bathe their child in cow's urine. Yikes, that's socially troubling for us, isn't it? The thought of doing something like that for us in our Western world, to bathe your most, frail and sensitive child in cow's urine. How's that going to protect the child? And then they put tilak on with cow dung. So if we ever get short of tilak from India, we can use cow dung tilak, according to this next verse. Actually, when my son was a baby, he had baby eczema. And I put cow's urine on just before he had his bath. And the child with eczema went away, never came back. So I experienced physically the benefits of cow's urine on the skin of a child. But they weren't worried about it because they're the complexion of their child here. They wanted to protect their child from the traumas of living in, from being killed, from trying to be killed by Putana. So there's something in this process of cow dung and cow urine. There is some universal connectivity that gives protection. So Prabhupada in these purports, this verse, he's pointing out how cow protection is so important. You protect cows and the cows in return protect us. We drink their milk, we get the nutrients from it. Prabhupada talks about feeding the brain. I don't know about you, but when I drink hot milk, I feel that hot milk going to my brain. I feel it kind of feeding something. I don't know. There's a devotee in America called Purushottam Kshetra. He tried to do a research about this. What is it in milk that feeds the finer brain tissues? He did some research. It wasn't. I wouldn't say it was completely categorically clinched, but he was definitely going down the right route. And there is some scientific evidence that certain things, certain foods, feed the intellect. That's kind of understood. So he was showing that if cows eat certain kind of foods and that produces a certain type of thing, that if you eat that food, then that also feeds your intellect. But Srila Prabhupada said it so many times, so it's definitely a fact. And from a basic point of view, if you eat food in the mode of goodness, your ability to understand finer things becomes more enabled. If you eat foods that are tamasic, then your vision is cloudy, or your behavior becomes aggressive. So foods affect your ability of perception. So this is a very intriguing pastime and just by listening to it with faith and devotion, then you get the highest thing, which is attachment to Krishna. Now this is also a difficult thing for people to appreciate in society. They don't think the goal of life is to become attached to God. God's good for getting cars. In fact, there are some evangelists that would use material affluence as a measurement of devotion to God. And they prove, I'm a servant of God because I've got a private jet. I've got 4 of them, which means I'm really super duper for God's servant. This is what they say. And so they think that material acquisition is a sign of getting God's favor. But what the Bhagavatam tells us, this verse is telling us, that the real favor of the Lord is to feel that attachment for Krishna. That is the real gift of life, to find that attachment, because that is substantial. That's on the transcendental the transcendental level. Today, at Bhaktivedanta Manor, they're celebrating Sita's appearance day. In the manor they have Sita, Ram, Lakshman, Hanuman deities. And they were chosen for Bhaktivedanta Manor because there's a Swami, he's passed away now, it's called Krishnadas Swami, Krishnadas Maharaj. And he recognized that the Indian community have an affinity to Lord Ram. So he suggested that they have Sita, Ram, Lakshman, Hanuman deities. So, and they do. I think there's not many temples in the ISKCON that have Sita, Ram, Lakshman, Hanuman deities. Mumbai has, the manor has. I'm not sure if they're Delhi? Not maybe because they have so many temples now, like 14 temples in Delhi. There's incredible, so I don't know. Maybe they do, I can't remember. I was recently at an opening, and maybe they had Sita, Ram, Lakshman, Hanuman in Rohini temple, the latest one that's been opened. I think they had that, I think so. So they take this festival very seriously. They make a flower outfit for Sita. They do it also for Radhastami. They make a flower outfit. So she gets an outfit completely made of flowers, beautiful. It's not literally made of flowers, it's got like a canvas or some kind of fabric and they glue the flowers to it, but you just see an outfit made of flowers. And they'll probably have a Harinam today, and then they'll have a lot of devotees will come, special classes. So it's a very major festival because it's the major deities on the altar. I thought I'd just read a little something from the 9th canto. There's the Ramayana goes into a lot more depth in the pastime, but the 9th canto touched on this important points. So actually, before this pastime starts, it's mentioned that, well, you know about, more or less it says that you know about Lord Ramachandra. It's kind of known, it's been described by a great saintly person. So the pastimes of Lord Ramachandra were known quite well during this discussion with the sages of Naimisharanya or the other sages. They knew about Ramayana. But still, it's been now summarized. But before because they broader summarization, there's a kind of quick summary. So I thought I'd just read that. This is text 4. I won't read the Sanskrit, it's not versed, it's kind of free-flowing. But the translation is, where more or less the whole story of Ramayana is succinctly described by the Srimad Bhagavatam itself. To keep the promise of his father intact, Lord Ramachandra immediately gave up the position of king and, accompanied by his wife, Mother Sita, wandered from one forest to another on his lotus feet, which were so delicate that they were unable to bear even the touch of Sita's palms. The Lord was also accompanied by Hanuman, the king of the monkeys, or by another monkey, Sugriva, and by his own younger brother, Lord Lakshmana, both of whom gave him relief from the fatigue of wandering in the forest. Having cut off the nose and ears of Shurpanaka, thus disfiguring her, the Lord was separated from Mother Sita. He therefore became angry, moving his eyebrows and thus frightening the ocean, who then allowed the Lord to construct a bridge to cross the ocean. Subsequently, the Lord entered the kingdom of Ravana to kill him, like a fire devouring a forest. May that Supreme Lord, Ramachandra, give us all protection. So here, Sita's, it's not elaborately described here. She is, she mentioned in the various verses later on in this chapter. In here, she's described as Priyaya, very dear. So Sita was very dear to Lord Ram. As far as I can recall, she also has an ox pastime. She was ploughed out of the ground and she appeared in a box. So cows and bulls are everywhere in the Vedic culture. So Lord Ram is completely devoted to her. When he had to go to the forest, or when he agreed to go to the forest, he thought, no, you can't come. She's such a princess's daughter. She had a life of luxury, a life of servants, and everything she needs is taken care of. He, out of his love for Sita, he didn't want her to go to the forest. But she insisted, no, I'm going to accompany you. And then because of his attachment to her, then this whole story unfolds. And we heard that Ravana, he'd also heard about, and there's actually a story about Surpanaka. She was kind of enchanted by the beauty of Lord Ram and Lakshman, or Lord Ram actually, and she made an indecent proposal that more or less, let's you and I get it together, and Sita, ignore her, get rid of her, banish her. That didn't go down very well by Lord Ram. And I think then he said, okay, why don't you try Lakshman? He doesn't have a wife. He'll be good for you. Anyway, they were playing with Surpanaka, and the consequence, she got a bit agitated. And what it said, hell have no fury like a woman scorned. So don't provoke a lady, because they get very angry. So anyway, she got really angry, and she had the ability to kill people because she was a demoness. Although she appeared as a beautiful, 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 lady, beautiful princess, she then became angry, and they cut off her nose, and then her real form was made. So she went back to her brother Ravana and told him what had happened, and he obviously wasn't very happy. Now, before that, she had his army with her, so she sent this army to basically kill Ram and Lakshman. But them, being God, had the ability to kill this marauding army. So Ravana, when he heard about Sita, he heard about her beauty. And just hearing about her beauty, he became infatuated with lust. And he wanted to possess her. He had this blessing that he could make any form, take any form he liked, but he couldn't force himself upon a lady. That was one of the curses he had. Because he had done such a thing. He forced himself upon a lady, and then he was cursed that if he does it again, that's it. He's going to die. So he had to seduce ladies. He couldn't actually forcibly take them, otherwise he would have his end. So anyway, out of his lust for Sita, he concocted this whole elaborate scheme to lure away Ram and Lakshman and then steal her. So we recall that story that there was a Maricha who was a wizard. We heard about Putana being a witch. So he was a wizard and he could take different shapes. So he took the shape of a golden deer, and by dancing or appearing before Sita in different ways, she became mesmerized by this deer. She wanted it. And as wives sometimes do, they say to their husbands, can you get that for me? And if he says no, then they may not be so happy, and then he won't be happy because she's not happy. The husband's whole purpose in life is to make the wife happy. At least try. So it seems, anyway, that's what you have to try and do. Anyway, so Lord Ram, okay, I'll get the deer for you. And so off he went to get this deer. And along the way, then Maricha calls out, Lakshman, help me. He kind of had the voice of Lord Ram, that somehow the Ram is being affected here, and Lakshman needs to come and help him. So that would have meant that Sita would have been unprotected. So the story goes that then he said, no, I can't. There's nothing possible can go wrong with Ram. He's very, he's well equipped to deal with whatever it is. I mean, they just killed 10,000 marauding Rakshasas. So he definitely proved his ability to, thwart some problems. Anyway, so, her husband was calling out, and that's not going to go well on a wife's mind, that her husband's in distress, and there's someone here who can do something about it, who's not doing something about it. So she says some harsh words to Lakshman. You just want me. You're not going to save your brother because somehow that you're infatuated by me. And that broke Lakshman's heart, because as far as I recall, he never even looked at her. He always basically, his eye never went beyond her feet. He was that loyal to and that chaste himself, that he had no desire for Sita, but still those words were so cutting that he could not stay any longer. And words are like that sometimes. They're so cutting that you just forced to do something, even though you don't want to do it. You just got to get away from the pain of those cutting words. So Lakshman, he did this protective circle around Sita, and he went away to help Ram. So in the meantime, Ravan turns up, and by various, he appeared as a saintly person. So she's a cultured lady. If a saintly person comes to your house, then you want to offer them some refreshments and something. So he used her kindness as a trick to get her to leave that sacred circle. And then he grabs her, and then he takes her away on his chariot. I think it's pulled by braying donkeys or something? I think his chariot was pulled by donkeys. Can't remember exactly. Maybe you can fill it in. And along the way, then Jatayu, name of the vulture? Jatayu. So he tried to save Sita, and he wasn't successful. So eventually she was captured. And then the whole pastime unfolds how these monkeys were sent on a mission to Lord Rama in his search for Sita. He came across these monkeys, Hanuman, Sugriva, other monkeys, and they agreed to help him find. A lot of emotions were expressed there. So eventually he went across and by building this bridge, and they recaptured Sita. So this whole pastimes unfold because of Lord Ram's attachment and love for Sita. And then the extraordinary thing in this story is that eventually, once they're resituated in Ayodhya, and then at some point they hear the story of someone criticise Lord Ram for taking back his wife who'd been in this home of another. I mean, you can imagine that yourself. If someone steals your wife, and this person is a lusty vagabond and has power, has mystical abilities, you'd probably suspect the worst. It would be a natural thought for us to think like that. So someone in the village, they made a comment when Lord Ram was kind of incognito, as we hear the story, incognito, wondering what is the well-being of the citizen. And he heard this criticism of someone was kind of complaining about his wife, and he made some comment, I'm not like Lord Ram who takes back his wife. So anyway, as a consequence of that, mysteriously, Lord Ram asked his wife to go to the forest, which is a very troubling consideration. Although, interesting enough, Lord Chaitanya left his wife also. It seems that in the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they often leave their wives behind to leave them with this kind of intense vipralamba bhav of intense attachment through separation of the goddess of fortune with the Supreme Lord. Okay, those are things that come to my mind. Maybe you could share any things you have. And also there's a story of, quickly I'll point out the story of Janava. She is the wife of Lord Nityananda. I was just reading, checking up on it this morning, and Lord Chaitanya told Lord Nityananda, I think you should get married. It might be good for the preaching the mission. You're a bit attached. So anyway, he went, and he came across these two, one beautiful daughter, and he wanted to marry her, but the father wouldn't agree. So Lord Nityananda went away, and when the daughter heard that Lord Nityananda wanted to marry her, she basically died. She just died out of shock that she couldn't marry Lord Nityananda. Anyway, so her body was taken to the funeral pile, and the father had heard. He basically went to Lord Nityananda and said, no, come on, bring my wife, bring my daughter back to life. So Lord Nityananda went to that funeral, and he basically, she smelled the aroma from his beautiful skin, and she became reanimated. So he married her, and he also married her sister, who was Janava Mata. So we hear about Janava Mata. She's kind of a current, in the current controversies surrounding ISKCON society, about why we don't have any, I don't want to get into this topic, but I can mention it, about ladies being spiritual masters. And Janava is quoted because when Lord Chaitanya went, and when Lord Janana went, she continued the mission. She played a very important part in the mission of Krishna consciousness, and she had disciples. So oftentimes she is referred to as an example of ladies who have been initiated. Okay, that's some brief things about Janava. And the other Prabhu I don't know anything about.
Madhu Pandit.
Would you like to say something about Madhu Pandit, if you recall anything?
Yeah, he's the disciple of Yadada Pandit. And he was a main pujari in Vrindavan.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to Jaipur, you can see his Tulsi. He had a coat made of intertwined Tulsi branches, twigs, and it's there in display behind the glass panel. You can see that coat made of Tulsi intertwined twigs. He was wearing that. So he was a main pujari, quite a main pujari in Vietnam. That's what I know.
Here's the deity of Gopinath. Huh?
Yeah, Gopinath. Disciple of Yadada Pandit.
Okay, any questions or comments on these things? Any pastimes that you'd like to share that I may not have elucidated enough?
So, we were talking about the protection of a cow's tail, Prabhu. So, if we were to have lots of cows, would this give a protective effect?
Yeah, is it cumulative? Or is it like a Shalagam Shila, that one Shila is enough?
Yeah.
Well, I guess if you're milking the cows and you get swatted on the back of the head by the cow's tail, you might perceive it a little differently. You might see it as a blessing rather than a thump on the back of the head. Anyone ever been thumped by a cow while you're milking them? It's definitely a thump. So if you remember, she's blessing you in a different way. It's extraordinary. It is really, really extraordinary. Everything about the cow is extraordinary. Now we take it for granted because we're not trained in it. We don't hear enough about it. We don't interact with it. We just, the best we see their milk in a shop, or we drink the milk. But when you interact with them, you just get the experience that everything about them is giving. In fact, we even see in our society that people, like in secular world, people donate for cats and dogs and donkeys. Donkeys are very well funded in cats and dogs. But in those who are from the Vedic culture, they support cows financially. They're like, they're the recipients of lots of income, you could say. And even their ghee from a protected cow is worth £70 per kilo. You can buy ghee from a supermarket for like £4.50, maybe £10 a kilo or something, or a litre.
Yeah.
But cow protection ghee is worth £70 a litre. So more cows, we need more cows. Actually, the word I mentioned the other day, the word Govinda means he wants more cows. Vinda means he's looking for, and he obtains them, and he gets them. So we as a society also have to exude that same anxiousness to get more and more cows, because where else can you find a protected cow? In the times of the Bhagavatam, only one cow was seen to be troubled by society, and there was like, I'm going to kill you for that. But nowadays you can hardly find a single cow that's protected. They're only protected or looked after for the time that they're the most productive, and then they're gone. We have a friend who works part-time in a dairy, and she was saying that when the milk yield of the cows drops below 30 litres a day, less than 30 litres a day, it's in the category of going to be killed. If it gets any slight disease, mastitis, it's in the category of going to be killed. So they don't care about their cows only when they're productive. Whereas we are cow protectors. We're going to protect the cows. So to make a difference to the world, we, as a society, have to keep this mission of cow protection relevant to us. If it's not relevant to us, then how on earth are we going to make it relevant for anybody else? If we want to show how this culture of the Bhagavatam is real, we also have to keep manifesting it being real to us, which means we have to have lots of cows. More or less the ratio between cows protected and humans, it's 1 to 6. When you do the maths between milk yields and human consumption, you need 1 cow or calf or bull or ox per 6 people.
Worldwide?
No, just in the West, because our cows give a lot more milk. We get 10,000 litres per calf. In India, currently they get less, 1/5 of that, 2,000 litres per calf. So their ratio is much more acute, maybe more like 1.5 people per cow. So there's a relationship for cow protection. There's a numerical relationship between the population of humanity and the number of the cows. Now, interestingly enough, nowadays, in this kind of modern thinking, we get taught there's too many cows. That's what they tell us. They're the cause of climate change. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. There's some mischievous people misleading the whole world. Everything we know about cows is good. The urine we just heard, you bathe a child with it, it gives protection. You can make medicine out of cow's urine. In fact, there's so many medicines you can make. The cow dung feeds the earth. The cow dung, you can, sometimes if you've got mosquitoes, you can burn some cow dung and that smoke will ward off the mosquitoes. When the cow dies, everything about it that they're using in modern times, you can still use it from a dead, protected cow. So everything we know about cow is good. Why is it that the gas suddenly, the belching and the gas of a cow, why do we have to believe that that is detrimental to the earth? No, that gas is feeding the fabric of the universe. It's nourishing the universe. So we have to be completely convinced about it. So if someone's telling some mischievousness that the cows are bad for the earth, they're lying to us. Now, practically speaking, if you put all your cow dung around the base of a tree, you're going to kill the tree. If you overload it with too much cow dung, it's an overload of nutrients. The tree's not going to thrive in it. So you've got to be sensible about it. Now, they say things like, the cows are drinking water. Somewhere out there, a farm with 10,000 cows in America is affecting the water shortage in another part of the world. I mean, this is silly, mischievous connection, wrong connections. Cows drink water and they produce milk. So we have to be very careful which arguments that we accept and repeat ourselves. We have to differentiate what is an anti-cow argument and what is a anti-slaughter argument. So cows passing dung and polluting the river, it's not about having 10,000 cows or 20,000 cows. It's about how you're dealing with the cow dung, not the fact that cows pass dung. It's a management issue. It's not a numerical of cows issue. So we don't have too many cows. We need more cows. So a long answer for your question about a cow's tail. But we have to avoid cows. Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. Didn't Prabhupada say that the cows in the West are former butchers because, they happen to kill cows in the previous lives as humans, and the result of that, they become cows themselves to be slaughtered.
Yeah, I mean, cows are being killed because they killed in the past.
Exactly.
If people want to enjoy the pleasure of killing a cow, then they also have to enjoy the pleasure of being killed as a cow. Lord Chaitanya, this is one of his arguments that he made to Chankazi. He said, okay, you have these reasons why you're killing the cows. You're saying that somehow, well, the Vedas used to do it, But you can't bring the cows back to life. Whereas the Vedic yogis, where cows were killed, they bring them back. They had the ability to bring them back to life to prove the effectiveness of the ceremony. But he said, there's no. Unfortunately, if you kill the cow, you have to suffer for as many hairs as there are on its back. So cows are not being killed just because there's a karmic consequence of blowing you to be born as a cow, to be killed as a cow. Yeah, it's very true what you're saying. And people don't know this science. They don't know the power of karma. And then wars come. As you know, I also read something karmically. There's a connection between, sorry to say this, abortion and cow killing. You kill your mother kills you. Prabhu mentioned that too. There's kind of a karmic interconnection. So the messages of the Bhagavatam are so important for society. When people follow the codes of the Bhagavatam, they find greater happiness in their own life, because the yogic, we have a yogi behind us. Here's one of our yogis here. He used the word yoga. So when you follow the yoga life, then you become happier in yourself. So when your society is integrated with cow protection, you become more peaceful and more satisfied in life. Yeah, so it's all interconnected. Anything else? Okay. Then we shall stop 5 minutes early. Srimad Bhagavatam ki.
Prabhu is leaving us today. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Come back soon again. Enlighten us that we get a bit closer to the cows. They are a bit far sometimes. Thank you.
Right outside your door, you said last time. A bit further down.
Lost cows everywhere in the region. We have 28,000 cows under the custom. And we keep bringing them in huge lands near the mountains. Very conscious of health.
India is kind of getting strong there.
Yeah, although they're getting also influenced by killing these animals.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.
Is everything okay?
Yeah, just have to get things on and start. What time they're coming? Yeah,
Forget to mention.
yeah. And I wanted to ask you about before I forget. He's out now. Yeah, actually I was saying, he had a valid point. His point is, he wants to bring his son to the community. And what it is, now government said, okay, in a traumatic state or like some kind of abnormal state. Let me finish the sentence.